The announcement came on a cold autumn morning when Orla Ravenscar stood barefoot in her father's longhouse, staring at the tribal elders who had just sealed her fate with a handshake and a bag of silver coins. "The human settlement needs a bride," her father said, not meeting her eyes. "Their magistrate requested an alliance. You will marry one of their farmers." Orla felt the words like a physical blow. Around her, the other orcs in the longhouse shifted uncomfortably. Her younger sister Mira gasped, then quickly covered her mouth. Her mother stood silent in the corner, her green face unreadable, but her hands trembled as they gripped her apron. "Which farmer?" Orla managed to ask, though her throat felt tight. "Does it matter?" Her father's voice was gruff. "They are paying well. This alliance will keep the humans from raiding our territory. You should be honored to serve your clan." Honored. The word tasted bitter. Orla touched her tusks self-consciously, the small curved protrusions that jutted from her lower jaw. They were delicate by orc standards, almost dainty, but she knew humans found them monstrous. She had seen the way human traders looked at her kind when they came to the border markets, the disgust barely concealed in their eyes. "When?" she asked quietly. 3 days. Pack your things." The next 3 days passed in a blur of whispered conversations and pitying looks. The other young orcs in her clan avoided her, as though her fate might be contagious. Only Mira stayed close, helping her fold clothes and gather her few possessions. "Maybe he will be kind," Mira said hopefully as they sat together the night before Orla's departure. "Humans do not marry orcs out of kindness," Orla replied, running her fingers over the worn leather of her mother's old travel bag. "They do it out of necessity. He probably needs a strong back for his farm and could not afford a human wife." "Then he is fortunate to get you," Mira said fiercely. "You are stronger and smarter than any human woman." Orla smiled despite herself, though it felt brittle. "Do not let father hear you say such things." On the morning of her departure, Orla dressed in her finest clothing, a simple green tunic and brown trousers that her mother had embroidered with careful stitches along the hem. Her mother braided her black hair in the traditional style of an orc bride, weaving in small copper beads that caught the light. "Hold your head high," her mother whispered as she worked. "You are Ravenscar. We bow to no one." But as Orla walked through the clan grounds toward the waiting wagon, she heard the whispers. They came from every direction, soft and cruel. "Look at those tusks. No wonder they are sending her away. What human would want an orc face in his bed? Better her than one of us." Orla kept her eyes forward, her mother's words echoing in her mind. She climbed into the wagon beside the human driver, an older man with weathered skin and suspicious eyes. He did not speak to her during the long journey south, and she was grateful for the silence. The human settlement appeared as the sun began to set, a cluster of wooden buildings surrounded by farmland. Smoke rose from chimneys, and she could see people moving between the structures. As the wagon rolled down the main road, heads turned. Children pointed. Women pulled their skirts aside as if Orla's presence might contaminate them. The wagon stopped in front of a modest building that the driver identified as the magistrate's office. Orla climbed down, her legs stiff from the journey, and followed him inside. The magistrate was a thin man with gray hair and ink-stained fingers. He looked up from his desk and frowned when he saw her, his gaze lingering on her tusks. "Ah, the orc bride." He said it like he might say the sheep or the plow. A thing, not a person. "My name is Orla Ravenscar," she said clearly. Meeting his eyes, he blinked, apparently surprised she could speak. "Yes. Well, your husband is waiting outside. Vincent Ashford. Good man. War veteran, keeps to himself mostly. Husband." The word felt surreal. Orla followed the magistrate outside, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. A man stood beside a horse and cart, his back to them as he adjusted something in the wagon bed. He was tall, with broad shoulders and brown hair that curled slightly at his collar. He wore simple farmer's clothes, clean but well worn. "Ashford," the magistrate called, "your bride has arrived." The man turned, and Orla found herself looking into the most striking blue eyes she had ever seen. His face was handsome in a rugged way, with strong features and a scar along his left cheekbone that spoke of old violence. He looked at her, and she braced herself for the familiar expression of disgust. It did not come. Instead, Vincent Ashford studied her face with what seemed like genuine curiosity. His gaze traveled over her features, lingering for a moment on her tusks, but there was no revulsion in his expression. "Orla Ravenscar," the magistrate said officiously. "This is Vincent Ashford. You are now married according to the laws of this settlement and the treaty with your clan. Ashford, she is your responsibility now." Vincent stepped forward and extended his hand. "Hello." Orla stared at his hand for a moment before taking it. His grip was firm but not crushing, his palm calloused from work. "Hello," she echoed. "Let me help you with your things." He moved to take her bag from her shoulder, his movements careful as though he was afraid of startling her. They loaded her few possessions into his cart in silence while the magistrate watched with obvious impatience. A small crowd had gathered nearby, settlers watching the strange spectacle with barely concealed hostility. Orla heard their muttered comments. "Disgusting. An orc in our settlement. What is the council thinking? Look at those tusks, like a boar." Orla kept her face carefully blank, but her hands clenched into fists at her sides. She had known it would be like this. She had prepared herself, but the words still cut deep. "Ignore them," Vincent said quietly. He had moved closer, positioning himself slightly between her and the crowd. "Are you ready to go?" she nodded, not trusting her voice. The ride to his farm took perhaps 20 minutes, following a winding road through fields and pastures. Vincent did not attempt conversation, for which Orla was grateful. She needed time to process everything that had happened, everything that was still happening. His farm appeared as the last light faded from the sky. It was a simple property, a small wooden house with a barn and several outbuildings, surrounded by fenced fields. Everything looked well maintained but modest. This was not the home of a wealthy man. Vincent helped her down from the cart, then carried her bag toward the house. "It is not much," he said, sounding almost apologetic. "But it is sturdy. The roof does not leak and the hearth draws well." Inside, the house was clean and sparsely furnished. A main room with a fireplace and table, a small kitchen area, and 2 doors that presumably led to other rooms. Everything was orderly, almost military in its precision. "You must be hungry," Vincent said, setting her bag down. "Let me make something. I can cook," Orla said quickly. It felt wrong to stand idle while he worked. Vincent paused, studying her. "You have traveled all day. Sit, please." It was not a command, but a request. Orla lowered herself into one of the chairs at the table and watched as he moved around the kitchen with practiced efficiency. He made a simple stew with vegetables and dried meat, along with fresh bread that he must have baked that morning. They ate in awkward silence. Orla kept expecting him to say something, to make demands or lay out rules for how she was to behave. But Vincent simply ate his meal, occasionally glancing at her as though checking that she was eating too. Finally, she could not stand it anymore. "Why did you agree to this?" she asked. Vincent looked up from his bowl. "To the marriage?" "Yes." He set down his spoon carefully. "The magistrate said the settlement needed to strengthen ties with the orc clans. They asked for volunteers who were unmarried and had land. I qualified." "But why would you volunteer?" Orla pressed. "You could have married a human woman." Something flickered in Vincent's eyes, something old and painful. I did not think any human woman would want me. Orla blinked, surprised. Why not? He touched the scar on his face briefly. I came back from the war different, quiet. I have nightmares. I prefer the company of my animals to most people. He met her eyes. I thought perhaps an arranged marriage would be easier. No pretense of courtship. No expectations of romance. Just two people trying to build a life. His honesty caught her off guard. She had expected cruelty or indifference, not this careful vulnerability. I see, she said quietly. I know this is not what you wanted, Vincent continued. I know you were probably forced into this. I will not make demands of you beyond what is reasonable. You will have your own room. I expect help with the farm work, but I will not treat you as a servant, and I will never. He paused, seeming to search for words. I will never force you to share my bed. When and if that happens, it will be your choice. Orla felt something in her chest loosen slightly. Thank you. Vincent nodded and stood, collecting their empty bowls. Your room is through that door. It is small but private. I will be in the barn for a while, checking on the animals. Make yourself at home. He left before she could respond, the door closing softly behind him. Orla sat alone in the quiet house, trying to process this strange turn of events. She had expected a monster, a cruel master who would work her to death and treat her with contempt. Instead, she had found a damaged, lonely man who seemed almost as uncertain about this arrangement as she was. She explored her new room and found it simple but comfortable. A narrow bed with clean linens, a small dresser, a washstand with a basin and pitcher. A window looked out over the dark fields. Someone had placed a small vase of wildflowers on the dresser. She touched the petals gently, wondering if Vincent had put them there. That night, lying in her unfamiliar bed, Orla listened to the sounds of her new home. Wind rustling through the trees outside, the distant lowing of cattle, and later, much later, footsteps in the main room as Vincent returned from the barn, moving quietly so as not to disturb her. She did not sleep well. The next morning, Orla woke to the sound of a rooster crowing. Dawn light filtered through her window, pale and cold. She dressed quickly in her work clothes and emerged to find Vincent already awake, building up the fire in the hearth. "Good morning," he said. "There is porridge if you want breakfast." They ate together in that same careful silence. Then Vincent led her outside to show her the farm. He had dairy cows, chickens, a vegetable garden that was winding down for the winter, and fields where he grew wheat and barley. "The harvest is mostly done," he explained as they walked. "Now it is preparing for winter, repairing fences, making sure the animals have shelter, putting up preserves." He glanced at her. "Can you handle a hammer?" "Yes," Orla said. She had worked on her clan's construction projects since she was young. Orcs believed everyone should know how to build and repair. "Good. I could use help with the barn roof. Some of the shingles need replacing before the snow comes." They worked together that morning, and Orla found a strange comfort in the physical labor. Vincent was a good teacher, showing her his methods without condescension. He treated her like a partner, not a servant. When she lifted a heavy beam that he had been struggling with, he did not seem threatened by her strength but rather grateful. "Thank you," he said simply. Around midday, a wagon rolled up the road toward the farm. Vincent tensed, his hand moving instinctively to his side as though reaching for a weapon that was not there. 3 men climbed down from the wagon. They were rough-looking, with the swagger of those who considered themselves important. The one in front, a heavy-set man with a red face, looked between Vincent and Orla with obvious disdain. "Ashford," the man said. "We heard you went through with it. We had to come see for ourselves." "Good morning, Garrett," Vincent said evenly. "What can I do for you?" You can explain why you brought an orc onto human land, Garrett said. Bad enough that the council made this deal, but we thought surely no one would actually go through with it. The council authorized the marriage, Vincent replied. Everything is legal. Legal maybe, but not right. Garrett spat on the ground. Look at her, those tusks, that green skin. It is unnatural. Orla felt her face burn, but she kept her expression neutral. Vincent took a step forward, putting himself partially in front of her. I think you should leave, he said quietly. We are just trying to help you see sense, one of the other men said. You are still one of us, Ashford, war hero. You do not need to tie yourself to an orc to have a woman. There are plenty of human girls who would take you. I do not recall asking for your advice, Vincent said. His voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. This is my land. Orla is my wife. I will thank you to show her respect or get off my property. Garrett's face reddened further. You will regret this. Mark my words. When that creature shows her true nature, when she turns on you like the savage she is, do not come crying to the settlement for help. Noted. Now leave. The three men climbed back into their wagon, muttering among themselves. As they drove away, Garrett called back. You have made your choice, Ashford. Do not expect your neighbors to welcome you anymore. Vincent watched them until they disappeared down the road, his jaw tight. Then he turned to Orla. I am sorry about that. Why are you apologizing? Orla asked. You defended me. I should have known they would come. I should have warned you. He ran a hand through his hair. Garrett owns the largest farm in the area. He has influence. This might make things difficult. More difficult than they already are. Orla could not quite keep the bitterness from her voice. Vincent met her eyes and she saw something like understanding there. You are right. I suppose things were already difficult, he paused. But for what it is worth, I meant what I said. You are my wife. That means something to me, even if this marriage was arranged. I will not let people disrespect you. Orla felt a strange warmth in her chest, unfamiliar and unsettling. Thank you, she said quietly. They returned to work, but the mood had shifted. Vincent seemed more aware of her now, glancing over periodically as though checking that she was all right. When they broke for lunch, he made sure to serve her first. Small gestures, but they mattered. That evening, as they prepared dinner together, Vincent asked her about her clan. It was the first personal question he had posed. What was your life like before? He asked, chopping vegetables with steady, precise movements. Orla considered how to answer. I worked in the forges mostly. My clan makes weapons and tools to trade. I was apprenticed to our master smith. Vincent looked up with interest. You are a smith. I was learning to be one. I had not finished my training. She stirred the pot on the hearth. My father decided I was more valuable as a bridge to the humans than as a smith. That must have been hard, Vincent said, giving up your craft. It does not matter now. It matters, Vincent insisted gently. Just because something has ended does not mean it did not matter. Orla looked at him, surprised by his perception. Yes, she admitted. It was hard. I loved working with metal, the heat of the forge. The way you can shape something rough into something useful and beautiful. I have a small forge, Vincent said, just for basic repairs and such. You are welcome to use it if you would like. Really, of course. It is your home now, too. Your home. The word settled over her like a blanket. She had not thought of this place as home, had not expected to. But Vincent spoke as though it was simply a fact, not something she had to earn. Over the following weeks. They fell into a rhythm. Each morning they would rise with the sun and work until dark, preparing the farm for winter. Orla proved herself invaluable, her orc strength allowing her to accomplish tasks that would have taken Vincent twice as long. She could lift bales of hay that would have required 2 human men, could drive fence posts into the hard ground with just a sledgehammer. Vincent never treated this as strange or threatening. He simply adjusted their work distribution to play to her strengths while he handled tasks that required more precision or technical knowledge. In the evenings, they would cook together and eat while Vincent told her about the farm, about the animals, about his plans for the spring planting. Sometimes he would ask her questions about orc culture, always respectfully, never prying if she seemed uncomfortable. And slowly, carefully, Orla began to relax. She discovered that Vincent had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. When one of his chickens escaped and led them on a chase around the yard, he commented, "I think she is training to join the circus." When Orla managed to fix a broken plow wheel that he had been struggling with, he said solemnly, "I am clearly useless. You should fire me." She found herself smiling more than laughing. It felt strange at first, this lightness. But Vincent seemed pleased when he made her laugh, a small smile crossing his usually serious face. Market day came, and Vincent asked if she wanted to go with him to sell their produce and eggs. "Will there be trouble?" Orla asked. "Probably," Vincent admitted, "but you should not have to hide. And I would like the company." So she went, riding beside him in the cart as they made the journey to the settlement's market square. The reactions were about what she expected. People stared, children pointed, women pulled their families away. But Vincent ignored them all, conducting his business with calm professionalism. At one stall, a merchant refused to sell to Vincent when he saw Orla standing nearby. "I do not serve orc lovers," the man said flatly. "Then I will take my business elsewhere," Vincent replied evenly, and he did. They found another merchant who, while clearly uncomfortable, was willing to sell them what they needed. As they loaded supplies into the cart, a woman approached. She was older, with gray hair and a kind face. "Excuse me," she said to Orla. "I wanted to apologize for my neighbor's behavior." "Not all of us feel that way." Orla was so surprised she almost could not respond. "Thank you," she managed. The woman smiled. "My name is Helen Vaughn. My husband and I have a farm west of here. If you ever need anything, please do not hesitate to ask." She pressed a small package into Orla's hands. "Some cookies. Welcome to the area." After she left, Orla looked down at the package in her hands, feeling oddly emotional. One kindness among so much hostility, but it mattered. "See," Vincent said gently, "not everyone is terrible." "No," Orla agreed. "Not everyone." The incident with Garrett came to a head 2 weeks later. Orla was working in the vegetable garden, harvesting the last of the winter squash, when she heard horses approaching. She looked up to see Garrett and 4 other men riding up to the farm. Vincent emerged from the barn, his expression hardening when he saw who had come. "Garrett, what do you want?" "We are here on behalf of the settlement council," Garrett announced, though something about his tone suggested this was not entirely official. "There have been complaints about your orc living here. People are concerned." "Concerned about what exactly?" Vincent asked. "About having a dangerous creature so close to human families, about what might happen if she decides to revert to her savage nature." Garrett's eyes fixed on Orla. "Orcs cannot be trusted. Everyone knows that." Orla stood slowly, brushing dirt from her hands. She could feel her temper rising but forced herself to remain calm. "Orla has done nothing wrong," Vincent said firmly. "She has broken no laws. She has threatened no one. Your concerns are based on prejudice, not facts." "Are you calling me a liar, Ashford?" "I am calling you a bigot." Garrett's face purpled with rage. "You have changed, Ashford. The war broke something in you. You used to be a good man, a human man. Now look at you defending an orc over your own kind." "My own kind." Vincent's voice dropped dangerously low. "I fought in that war, Garrett. Do you know what I learned? That humans are just as capable of savagery as any orc. I saw men torture prisoners for sport. I saw them burn villages with children inside. So forgive me if I do not automatically assume that human means good and orc means evil." One of the men with Garrett shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should go." But Garrett was not finished. He dismounted and walked toward Orla, his hand resting on the knife at his belt. "Let me see those tusks up close, orc. I want to get a good look at what Ashford is sleeping with." Vincent moved faster than Orla had ever seen him move, intercepting Garrett before he could get close. "Do not touch her. Or what? You will fight me, 5 against 1. Those are bad odds even for a war hero." "Then make it 5 against 2, Orla said clearly. She moved to stand beside Vincent, her hands loose and ready. She might not have a weapon, but she had her strength and her anger. The men looked at her, then at each other. One of them, the youngest, seemed genuinely frightened. "Garrett, maybe this is not a good idea." "Coward," Garrett spat, but he took a step back. "This is not over, Ashford. You think you can live here peacefully with your orc whore. You are wrong. We will make your life hell until you see sense and send her back where she belongs." "Get off my land," Vincent said. Now, Garrett and his men rode away, but their threats hung in the air like poison. Vincent turned to Orla, his face pale. "Are you all right?" "I am fine," she said, though her hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline. "Are you?" "I am furious," Vincent admitted, "but fine." He looked toward the road where the men had disappeared. "This is going to get worse before it gets better." "Maybe I should leave," Orla said quietly. "Go back to my clan. I do not want to bring trouble to you." Vincent turned to her sharply. "Do not even think that. You are not going anywhere unless you want to go. I will not let those men drive you away." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why do you care so much?" "This marriage was an arrangement. You do not owe me this much." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft but intense. "Because you are a good person, Orla. In the weeks you have been here, you have worked harder than anyone I have ever known. You have been patient with my silences, kind to my animals, thoughtful in everything you do. You make me laugh. You make this farm feel less lonely. And you do not deserve to be treated like a monster just because of what you are." Orla felt her eyes burning with unexpected tears. "No one has ever." She could not finish the sentence. "Then they were fools," Vincent said simply. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently squeezed her shoulder. "You belong here. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise." That night, Orla lay in bed unable to sleep. Vincent's words kept echoing in her mind. "You belong here." When had anyone ever made her feel like she belonged anywhere? Even in her own clan, she had always been slightly apart, too interested in metal and fire, too outspoken, too different. But here, on this small farm with this quiet, damaged man, she was beginning to feel something like home. The next morning she found Vincent in his forge, attempting to repair a broken harness buckle. He was clearly struggling with the metalwork. "Let me," Orla said. She took over the forge, and it felt like coming home. The heat on her face, the smell of hot metal, the satisfying ring of hammer on anvil. Her hands remembered the skills her master smith had taught her, and within minutes she had crafted a new buckle that was stronger and more elegant than the original. Vincent watched her work with something like awe. That was incredible. Orla felt herself flush, pleased by his praise. "It is just basic smithing." "No," Vincent said, "it is art. You should not have had to give that up." "Maybe I did not have to," Orla said slowly. "Maybe I can still be a smith even here." "I think that is an excellent idea." Over the following weeks, Orla began to spend more time in the forge. She made tools for the farm, then started crafting items to sell at market. Her work was exceptional, and even the humans who looked at her with suspicion could not deny the quality of her metalwork. Vincent became her unofficial assistant, working the bellows and fetching materials. They developed an easy partnership, anticipating each other's needs without having to speak. One evening, as they worked on a particularly complex gate hinge, Vincent said, "You know, I have been thinking." "Dangerous activity," Orla teased. He smiled. "Very funny." "No, I was thinking that we should build a proper smithy. A separate building with better ventilation and more space. If you are going to do this seriously, you should have proper facilities." Orla looked at him, surprised. "That would be expensive. We can manage it. Your metalwork is already bringing in good money, and I have some savings." He met her eyes. "I want to invest in your dream, Orla, if you will let me." She felt that strange warmth in her chest again, stronger now. "Yes," she said softly, "I would like that." They began planning the smithy that very night, sketching designs and calculating materials. As they worked together at the kitchen table, their heads bent close over the drawings, Orla realized something that both thrilled and terrified her. She was falling in love with her husband. It was not the romantic love she had heard about in stories, no grand dramatic gestures or passionate declarations. Instead, it was quiet and steady, built on shared work and mutual respect, on kindness freely given and trust carefully earned. But she did not know if Vincent felt the same way. He was caring and considerate, but he had never indicated that he saw her as anything more than a partner and friend. He still kept his distance, still slept in his separate room, still treated her with the same careful courtesy he had shown from the beginning. Winter came in earnest, bringing snow and freezing temperatures. They worked together to keep the animals warm and fed, to maintain the buildings, to keep the house cozy. On particularly cold nights, they would sit together by the fire, Vincent reading aloud from his small collection of books while Orla mended clothes or sketched designs for new metalwork. One night, a particularly fierce blizzard struck. The wind howled around the house and snow piled high against the walls. Orla woke to the sound of something crashing outside and went to investigate, finding Vincent already up. "The barn door came loose," he said, pulling on his coat. "I need to secure it before the animals get out." "I will help." They fought their way through the driving snow to the barn, where the door was indeed banging violently in the wind. Together, they managed to secure it and check on the animals. The cows were nervous but unharmed, huddled together for warmth. As they worked, a section of the roof gave way with a crack and snow poured in. Vincent shoved Orla out of the way, and the broken beam that followed the snow crashed down on his shoulder instead of her head. He cried out in pain and went down hard. "Vincent!" Orla dropped to her knees beside him. The beam had pinned him to the ground, and she could see blood spreading across his coat. "Do not move." She lifted the beam off him with one hand, tossing it aside like it weighed nothing. Then she carefully examined his injury. The beam had struck his shoulder and the side of his head. The shoulder was definitely injured, possibly broken, and the head wound was bleeding freely. "Can you stand?" she asked. "I think so." But when he tried, he swayed dangerously. Orla did not hesitate. She scooped him up into her arms, cradling him against her chest as though he weighed nothing, and carried him back to the house through the blizzard. Inside, she laid him carefully on his bed and set about treating his injuries. She cleaned the head wound first, relieved to find it was not as deep as it had looked. The bleeding stopped quickly. His shoulder was more concerning, swollen and already bruising. "I need to check if it is broken," she said. "This is going to hurt." Vincent nodded, his face pale but determined. She felt along his shoulder and collarbone with careful fingers, and he hissed in pain but did not cry out. "I do not think anything is broken," she said finally. "But you have a bad sprain. You need to rest it. The animals, I will take care of the animals. You are not getting out of that bed until I say so." Vincent looked up at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "You carried me," he said softly. "Of course I carried you. What else was I supposed to do? I am not used to being taken care of." Orla sat down on the edge of the bed. "Well, get used to it. You have been taking care of me since I arrived. It is my turn." She cared for him over the next few days as the storm raged outside. She tended the farm alone, her orc strength allowing her to handle tasks that would have been impossible for most humans. She cooked his meals, changed his bandages, and sat with him in the evenings so he would not be bored. Vincent was a terrible patient, constantly trying to get up and help, insisting he was fine. But Orla was firm, and eventually he surrendered to her care. On the third night, as she was checking his shoulder, he caught her hand in his. "Orla," she looked down at him. "Yes, thank you. For everything. For taking care of the farm, for taking care of me. For staying even though people have been cruel to you. For making this place feel like a home." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I do not know what I would do without you." Orla felt her heart racing. "Vincent, I know this marriage was not your choice," he continued. "I know you were forced into it, but I want you to know that you have become the most important person in my life, not because you are my wife on paper, but because of who you are. Your strength, your kindness, your laugh, the way you light up when you are working in the forge. I look forward to seeing you every morning. I miss you when you are just in the other room. And I know I have no right to feel this way, but Orla leaned down and kissed him. It was gentle, tentative, her tusks making the angle slightly awkward. But Vincent's good hand came up to cup her face, and he kissed her back with such tenderness that she felt tears prick her eyes. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I love you," Vincent said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I have been falling in love with you since the day you arrived, but I did not think you could ever feel the same way. I thought you would always see me as the man who took you away from your home." "I do see you as the man who took me away," Orla said, and Vincent's face fell. She touched his cheek gently. "But not in the way you think. You took me away from a place where I did not fit, where I was never quite good enough, and you brought me to a place where I could be myself. Where I am valued, where I am loved." She smiled, feeling tears roll down her green cheeks. "I love you too, Vincent, so much that it scares me." He pulled her down into another kiss, deeper this time, full of all the feelings they had been holding back for months. When they finally broke apart, Orla was half lying on the bed beside him, careful not to jostle his injured shoulder. "Your tusks," Vincent murmured, touching them gently with his fingertips. "Everyone acts like they are hideous, but I think they are beautiful. They are part of your smile, and I have never seen a finer smile." Orla felt something break open inside her chest, all the shame and self-consciousness she had carried her whole life cracking apart under the weight of his sincere admiration. She buried her face in his chest and cried, great heaving sobs of relief and joy and overwhelming emotion. Vincent held her with his good arm, stroking her hair and whispering soothing words. "It is all right. I have got you. You are safe. You are loved." She cried until she had no tears left, and then she simply lay there, listening to his heartbeat, feeling his warmth, marveling at the fact that she had found him in the most unlikely of circumstances. "Move in with me," Vincent said suddenly. "I mean into my room. I know you have your own space and I will never pressure you, but I would like to fall asleep beside you, to wake up and see you first thing, if you want that too." "Yes," Orla said without hesitation. "I want that." That night, despite his injuries, despite the storm still raging outside, they were happier than either had been in years. They talked for hours, sharing stories and secrets, learning each other in this new context of acknowledged love. Vincent told her about the war, about the things he had seen and done that still haunted him, about the friends he had lost and the guilt he carried. Orla listened without judgment, holding his hand, understanding now why he sometimes woke in the night gasping. She told him about her life in the clan, about the loneliness of being different, about the sting of being traded away like property, about the fear she had felt arriving here, expecting cruelty and finding kindness instead. "We are quite a pair," Vincent said with a slight smile. "Two damaged people building something whole." "I do not think we are damaged," Orla said thoughtfully. "I think we are just people. Everyone carries scars. Ours are just more visible." As the winter wore on, their relationship deepened. Vincent healed quickly under Orla's care, and soon they were working side by side again, but everything felt different now. Lighter, charged with possibility, they stole kisses while working in the barn. They held hands while walking through the snow-covered fields. They fell asleep tangled together every night and woke the same way every morning. The settlement's hostility continued, but it felt less important now. Garrett tried several more times to make trouble, bringing complaints to the council, spreading rumors about Orla being dangerous. But Vincent's reputation as a war hero and their demonstrable success as a farm carried weight. The council, whatever their personal feelings, could not find legal grounds to force Orla to leave. And slowly, very slowly, some of the other settlers began to soften. Helen Vaughn visited regularly, bringing food and good cheer. A few other families, seeing that Orla was not in fact a monster, began to nod politely at Market. Children who had been taught to fear her began to approach curiously when they saw her working in the forge, fascinated by the sparks and the glowing metal. One day in late winter, a young settler came to the farm with a broken plow. "I heard you do metalwork," he said to Orla nervously. "My father said I should not come here, but our plow is broken and we cannot afford a new one." Orla looked at the plow, then at the boy's anxious face. "I can fix it, no charge." "Really? But my father said—" "Your father is not here," Orla said gently, "and you need help. That is all that matters." She repaired the plow while the boy watched in fascination, asking questions about the process. When she finished, he thanked her profusely and hurried home. 2 days later, the boy's father came to the farm. He looked uncomfortable but determined. "My son said you fixed our plow for free. I wanted to thank you and to apologize. I have been saying things about you, believing things about you without knowing you at all." "I understand," Orla said. "People fear what they do not know. Still, it was wrong of me." He cleared his throat. "If you ever need anything, help with the farm or whatever, you can call on me. I owe you that much." After he left, Vincent hugged Orla tight. "See, you are changing minds, one person at a time." "I do not need to change everyone's mind," Orla said. "Just enough to make a life here." Spring came, and with it new life. The snow melted, revealing green fields ready for planting. The animals had survived the winter well, and several of the cows were pregnant. The farm felt full of promise. True to his word, Vincent had been saving money and materials for Orla's smithy. As soon as the ground thawed enough, they began construction. It was back-breaking work, but they threw themselves into it with enthusiasm. Other settlers passing by would sometimes stop to watch, bemused by the sight of an orc woman and a human man working together so seamlessly. A few even offered help, which Vincent and Orla gratefully accepted. The smithy took shape slowly. A sturdy building with good ventilation, a proper forge and space for tools and materials. On the day they finished, Orla stood in the doorway looking around with shining eyes. "It is perfect," she whispered. "You are perfect," Vincent said, wrapping his arms around her from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. "I am so proud of you." She leaned back against him, feeling completely content. How did I get so lucky? I think I am the lucky one. We can both be lucky. He laughed and kissed her temple. Deal. The smithy quickly became Orla's domain. She took on commissions from across the region, her reputation spreading as word got out about the quality of her work. She made practical items like tools and horseshoes, but also beautiful decorative pieces, drawing on the orc metalworking traditions she had learned in her clan. Money began to flow in more steadily, and they were able to make improvements to the farm. They bought more animals, repaired and expanded the barn, and even added a small addition to the house. Life was good. Better than good. But Orla sometimes felt a pang when she thought about her family. She had not heard from them since the day she left. She did not even know if they thought about her, if they cared how she was doing. Vincent noticed her melancholy one evening and asked about it. When she explained, he said, "Why do you not write to them? Let them know you are well." Would they care? I do not know. But you deserve the chance to find out. So Orla wrote a letter. She told her family about the farm, about her smithy, about Vincent. She kept it simple, not wanting to seem like she was bragging, but wanting them to know she was happy. She sent the letter with a traveling merchant who traded with the orc clans and waited, not really expecting a response. 3 weeks later, a response came. It was from Mira. "Sister, I was so happy to receive your letter," Mother cried when she read it. Father would not say anything, but I think he was pleased too in his way. "We all worried about you after you left. The clan elders said the marriage was necessary, but we feared you were being mistreated. I am so relieved to hear that you are well and happy. Your human sounds kind. I wish I could meet him. I miss you terribly. Please write again soon. With love, Mira." Orla read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Vincent held her and let her cry, understanding without words what this meant to her. "They cared," she said when she could speak. "They worried." "Of course they did. You are their daughter, their sister. That does not just stop." Orla began a regular correspondence with Mira, and through her letters she began to rebuild her connection to her family. It was not the same as being there, but it was something. Summer arrived in full bloom and the farm flourished under their care. The vegetable garden overflowed with produce. The wheat grew tall and golden. Baby calves gamboled in the fields. And then, one warm July morning, Orla realized her monthly cycle had not come. She waited a few more weeks to be sure, then told Vincent her suspicion. He stared at her, his face cycling through shock, joy, and terror in rapid succession. "A baby, I think so. I am not certain yet, but all the signs are there." Vincent sat down heavily. "I am going to be a father." Are you happy about this?" Orla asked nervously. They had never discussed children, had not planned for this, though in hindsight it seemed inevitable. Vincent looked up at her and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Happy? Orla, I am terrified and thrilled and overwhelmed. A baby. Our baby. Half human, half orc. If you do not want," he stood and pulled her into his arms. "I want. God, I want a family with you. I want to watch you grow round with our child. I want to teach them to farm and watch you teach them to smith. I want everything." Orla held him tight, her own fears melting away. "So do I." They went to see Helen Vaughn, who had experience as a midwife. Helen examined Orla and confirmed the pregnancy, beaming with delight. "A baby," she said, patting Orla's hand. "How wonderful." "Now, I have never delivered a half-orc child before, but I cannot imagine it is too different from a regular birth. We will figure it out together." News of the pregnancy spread quickly through the settlement, and the reactions were mixed. Some people were horrified, muttering about abominations and unnatural unions. But others, particularly those who had gotten to know Orla through her work, were genuinely happy for them. Garrett, predictably, was furious. He cornered Vincent at market one day, his face red with rage. "You have gone too far now, Ashford, breeding with an orc, creating a monster. The council will have to act." "The council has no authority over my family," Vincent said coldly. "And if you call my child a monster again, we are going to have a serious problem. Your child is a monster. Half orc, half human, neither one nor the other. It will be shunned by both races. You are condemning it to a life of misery." Vincent stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "My child will be loved. That is all that matters. Now get out of my way." But Garrett's words haunted Orla. What if he was right? What if their child was rejected by both humans and orcs? What kind of life would they have? She confessed her fears to Vincent one night as they lay in bed, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. What if Garrett is right? What if our child does not fit anywhere? Vincent rolled onto his side to face her, taking her hand in his. "Then we will teach them that belonging is not about what you are. It is about who you are. We will love them so fiercely that they will never doubt their worth. And we will teach them to be strong, to stand up for themselves, to forge their own path, just like their mother." You make it sound so simple. It is not simple. Nothing worthwhile ever is, but we will face it together. That is what marriage means, what family means. His words soothed her, and she settled back against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her back. As the pregnancy progressed, Orla's body changed in ways that were both strange and wondrous. Her belly grew, and soon she could feel the baby moving inside her, small flutters at first, then stronger kicks. Vincent was endlessly fascinated, always wanting to feel the baby move, talking to her belly in soft voices. "Hello in there, little one. This is your father. I am very excited to meet you. Your mother is too, though she pretends to be calm about it. We have been preparing for you. Your mother made a beautiful cradle in her forge, and I have been woodworking to make you toys. We have so much to teach you, so much love to give you." Orla would stroke his hair as he talked to the baby, overwhelmed with love for this man who had become her whole world. The pregnancy was not easy. Orla's orc constitution made her stronger than a human woman, but the mixed heritage of the baby caused complications. She had fierce morning sickness that lasted well into the second trimester. She had back pain and fatigue. Helen visited regularly to check on her, growing increasingly concerned as the pregnancy progressed. "The baby is large," Helen said during one examination. "Larger than a human baby would be at this stage. The delivery is going to be difficult." "Will she be all right?" Vincent asked, his face pale. "I hope so. Orla is strong, but I will not lie to you, this carries risks." Vincent became even more protective, insisting that Orla rest more, taking on the bulk of the farm work himself. Orla chafed at the restrictions but understood his fear. She had her own fears about the delivery. One evening in early autumn, when Orla was 7 months along and enormous, a wagon rolled up to the farm. Orla was sitting on the porch, resting after a day spent doing light work in the smithy, when she heard familiar voices. "Orla." She looked up to see Mira jumping down from the wagon, her face alight with joy. Behind her were their mother and, to Orla's shock, their father. "Mira." Orla struggled to her feet, and then her sister was there, hugging her carefully around her swollen belly. "Look at you," Mira said, tears streaming down her face. "You are going to have a baby." Their mother approached more slowly, her green face creased with emotion. "My daughter." She touched Orla's face gently. "I have missed you so much, Mother." Orla found herself crying too. "I did not think you would come. We had to see you, to make sure you were truly all right." She glanced toward the house where Vincent had emerged, drawn by the commotion. "And to meet your husband." Vincent approached slowly, clearly uncertain of his reception. Orla reached out a hand to him and he took it, standing beside her. "Mother, father, Mira, this is Vincent Ashford, my husband." Orla's voice was firm, proud. "Vincent, this is my family." There was a long, tense moment. Then Orla's father stepped forward. He looked Vincent up and down, his expression unreadable. "You are the human who married my daughter." "Yes, sir," Vincent said respectfully. "She says you treat her well, that you built her a forge, that you defend her from those who would do her harm." "I do my best." Orla's father looked at Orla's obvious pregnancy, then back at Vincent. "You love her." It was not a question, but Vincent answered anyway. "More than anything." A long silence, and then Orla's father nodded slowly. "Good. If you had said anything else, I would have broken your arm." But there was the faintest hint of a smile on his face. The tension broke, and everyone laughed, relief flooding through the group. They spent 3 days together, and it was healing in ways Orla had not known she needed. Her mother fussed over her pregnancy, sharing orc traditions and remedies. Mira followed Vincent around the farm, asking a million questions about human agriculture. Her father examined Orla's smithy with a critical eye, then grudgingly admitted that she had done excellent work. On the last evening of their visit, Orla's father pulled her aside. "I owe you an apology." Orla blinked in surprise. Her father never apologized. "For what?" "For sending you here. For treating you like a bargaining chip instead of my daughter. I told myself it was for the good of the clan, and maybe it was. But it was not good for you. I did not give you a choice." He looked uncomfortable but pressed on. "I am glad it worked out. Your human is a good man, but you deserved better than to be traded away." Orla felt years of hurt begin to ease. "Thank you for saying that. You have made a good life here, a happy life. I am proud of you." He paused. "And I am looking forward to meeting my grandchild. Half orc or not, they are my blood." When her family left, Orla cried, but they were happy tears. Vincent held her, understanding that sometimes you need to cry even when you are happy. "They love you," he said. "They do. And they accept you." "I did not dare hope for that." "We are building something new," Vincent said, resting his hand on her belly where the baby was kicking. "A bridge between two worlds. It is not easy, but it is worth it." The baby came on a cold October night, 3 weeks earlier than expected. Orla woke to sharp pains and knew immediately that labor had started. Vincent fetched Helen while Orla paced the house, breathing through contractions. The labor was long and difficult. Orla had never experienced such pain, and even her orc strength seemed inadequate against the onslaught. Vincent stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her face with cool cloths, whispering encouragement. "You can do this. You are the strongest person I know. Just a little more. I am right here. I am not leaving." Helen worked efficiently, coaching Orla through each stage of labor, but as the hours stretched on, she grew worried. "The baby is stuck. The shoulders are too broad. Orla, I need you to push harder." Orla bore down with all her strength, screaming with the effort. Vincent held her, his own face drawn with fear and helplessness. "One more push," Helen urged. "Give me everything you have." Orla pushed with a primal roar, and suddenly there was a release, and then the sound she had been waiting for, a baby's cry. "It is a girl," Helen announced, lifting the squalling infant. "A beautiful, healthy girl." Vincent and Orla stared at their daughter in wonder. She was small, tiny compared to the difficulty she had caused in coming into the world. Her skin was a light green, softer than Orla's deeper shade. She had a shock of dark hair, Vincent's blue eyes, and when she cried, they could see the tiniest hint of tusks forming in her gums. "She is perfect," Vincent breathed. Helen cleaned the baby and handed her to Orla, who cradled her daughter against her chest with trembling arms. The baby stopped crying immediately, snuggling against her mother's warmth. "Hello, little one," Orla whispered. "I am your mother, and this is your father. We love you so much already." Vincent leaned down to kiss both of them, tears streaming down his face. What should we name her? They had discussed names but never quite decided. Now, looking at their daughter, Orla knew. Olive, for the olive branch, the symbol of peace. "Olive Ashford," Vincent said, testing the name. "I love it." Helen finished her work and left them alone with their daughter. Vincent and Orla sat together on the bed, passing Olive between them, marveling at her tiny fingers and toes, her little pointed ears, the soft sound she made. "She really is perfect," Vincent said. "Look at her little tusks starting, just like her mother, and her eyes, just like her father. The best of both of us." Olive grew quickly, thriving under her parents' devoted care. She was a happy baby, quick to smile and curious about everything. As she grew, it became clear she had inherited her mother's strength and her father's even temperament. The settlement's reaction to Olive was mixed, but there were enough people who had warmed to Orla that the baby had protectors beyond her parents. Helen was a doting honorary grandmother. The young man whose plow Orla had fixed became a frequent visitor, along with his family. Even some who had been hostile began to soften when they saw the tiny baby, so clearly loved and cared for. Garrett remained bitter and angry, but his influence had waned. Too many people had benefited from Orla's smithing. Too many had seen that she was not the monster they had been told orcs were. His complaints to the council were dismissed, and eventually he stopped coming around. On Olive's first birthday, Orla and Vincent threw a small party. Helen came, as did several other families from the settlement. To everyone's surprise, Orla's family made the long journey again, bringing gifts and joy. As Orla watched her daughter toddle between her human father and her orc grandfather, both men laughing as they tried to keep up with her, she felt a profound sense of peace. This was what they had built. Not just a farm or a smithy or a marriage, but a family. A bridge between worlds. A place where love mattered more than the color of your skin or the shape of your teeth. Vincent came to stand beside her, slipping his arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "About how far we have come. About how lucky I am." "We are lucky," Vincent corrected gently. "Both of us." "Yes," Orla agreed, leaning into him. "Both of us." Olive squealed with delight as Mira picked her up and spun her around. The little girl's laugh rang out across the farm, pure and joyful, the sound of a child who knew she was loved. "They used to mock me for my tusks," Orla said softly. "Back in my clan, some of the other young orcs thought they were too small, too delicate, not orc enough. And here the humans saw them as proof I was a monster." Vincent turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "I told you before, and I will keep telling you for the rest of our lives. I have never seen a finer smile. Your tusks are part of you, and I love every part of you." Orla kissed him, deep and sweet, not caring who saw. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. "I love you, Vincent Ashford. I love you, Orla Ashford." Around them, the party continued. Human and orc, sitting together, sharing food and stories, celebrating a child who embodied the hope of both peoples. It was not perfect. There was still prejudice in the world, still people who would never accept their family. But here, on this farm, they had built something real and lasting. As the sun set over the fields, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Orla stood with her husband and daughter, surrounded by friends and family, and knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. She had been the orc bride, mocked and feared and cast out. But she had become so much more. A smith, a wife, a mother, a bridge between two worlds. And most importantly, she was herself, fully and completely, loved for exactly who she was. The future stretched before them, full of challenges and possibilities. There would be hard days ahead, times when the prejudice of the world would press down on them. But they would face it together, this family they had built from an arranged marriage and unexpected love. Olive reached up with both hands, one to each parent, and Orla and Vincent each took a tiny hand in theirs. Together, the three of them stood in the fading light, a family forged in fire and tempered by love, unbreakable and whole. Years passed, and their family grew. 2 more children came, a son named Oak who had his father's brown hair and his mother's green-tinged skin, and another daughter, Ivy, who looked almost entirely human except for the delicate points of her ears. The farm prospered, and Orla's smithy became renowned throughout the region. She took on apprentices, both human and orc, teaching her craft to anyone willing to learn. Vincent's farm was productive and well-run, and together they built something substantial and lasting. More mixed marriages occurred in the settlement, inspired by Orla and Vincent's example. It was not easy for any of them, but they supported each other, forming a community within the community. The orc clans and human settlements began to trade more freely, and tensions eased, though they never disappeared entirely. Olive grew into a confident young woman, proud of both sides of her heritage. She had her mother's skill with metal and her father's way with growing things. She spoke both common and orcish fluently and moved easily between both worlds. On Olive's 18th birthday, she announced her intention to become a trader, traveling between orc and human territories, facilitating commerce and understanding. Vincent and Orla were proud, even as they worried about the dangers she might face. "She has your courage," Vincent said to Orla as they watched Olive prepare for her first trading journey. "And your kindness," Orla replied. "She will do well." "We did something right," Vincent said. "All 3 of our children are happy, healthy, and ready to make their mark on the world." "We did many things right," Orla corrected, taking his hand. "We built a life on love instead of fear. We taught our children that their mixed heritage was a strength, not a weakness. We showed them that kindness matters more than what race you are." Vincent squeezed her hand. "I never imagined that day when you arrived that we would end up here, with this family, this life. I thought I would live and die alone on this farm. I thought I would spend my life as an outcast, never quite fitting anywhere." Orla leaned her head on his shoulder. "We saved each other." "We did." They stood together, watching the sun set over their land, their children laughing inside the house, and felt the deep satisfaction of a life well lived. There had been struggles and pain, prejudice and fear. But there had also been love, fierce and enduring, strong enough to bridge the gap between 2 worlds. Orla thought about that first day, standing in the settlement square, hearing the cruel comments about her tusks, her green skin, everything that made her different. She remembered her fear and shame, the certainty that her life was over. But then Vincent had turned and looked at her, and everything had changed. He had not seen a monster or a burden. He had seen a person, worthy of respect and eventually love. And in doing so, he had given her the space to see herself that way too. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked, reading the thoughtful expression on her face. "About how you saw me," Orla said. "Really saw me from the very beginning. No one had ever done that before. I saw a beautiful, strong woman who deserved better than the hand she had been dealt. I still see that every day. Even now," Orla teased, "with my gray hair and my wrinkles, especially now." Vincent turned her to face him, his own face creased with age but his blue eyes still bright. "You are even more beautiful than the day we met. Every year with you has been a gift." They kissed, soft and familiar, a kiss built on decades of partnership and love. When they pulled apart, they heard Olive calling them inside for dinner. "Coming," Vincent called back. He offered Orla his arm. "Shall we, my love?" "Always," Orla said, taking his arm. They walked back to the house together, their steps in sync after so many years together. Inside, their children had laid out a feast in honor of Olive's birthday. The table was crowded with food and laughter, with family and friends who had gathered to celebrate. As Orla took her seat, surrounded by everything she had built, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. Her life had not been easy, but it had been full. She had known love in its deepest form. She had created beauty with her hands and raised children who would make the world better. She had been part of something larger than herself, a bridge between peoples, proof that understanding could overcome fear. Vincent raised his glass. A toast to Olive as she begins her adventure. May she travel safely and bring light wherever she goes, and may she always know that she has a home to return to where she is loved beyond measure. Everyone raised their glasses, echoing his words. Olive stood, her face flushed with emotion. "I want to say something too," she said. "I know my life has not been typical. Being half orc, half human, I have faced questions about where I belong. But I want to thank my parents for teaching me that I belong everywhere and nowhere, and that this is not a weakness but a gift. I can move between worlds because you taught me that love transcends boundaries, that family is built on choice as much as blood, and that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. I will carry those lessons with me always." Orla found tears streaming down her face. Vincent reached over and took her hand, his own eyes wet. "We are very proud of you," Orla said to her daughter. "All of you," she added, looking at Oak and Ivy. "You have given our lives meaning." The evening continued with stories and laughter, with music and dancing. At one point, Vincent pulled Orla aside to the porch where they could be alone for a moment. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For saying yes to this life. For staying even when things were hard, for loving me, for giving me a family, for everything." Orla cupped his face in her hands. "I should be thanking you. You looked at me on the worst day of my life and saw something worth loving. You defended me when no one else would. You built me a forge and a home and a life. You gave me children and purpose and joy. You told me my smile was fine when the world told me I was monstrous." "It is the finest smile I have ever seen," Vincent said, just as he had said so many times before. "And I will never stop saying it." They kissed again, and in that kiss was everything they had been through together. Every challenge overcome, every moment of joy shared, every quiet evening by the fire and every passionate night in each other's arms. A lifetime of love, condensed into a single perfect moment. When they returned inside, the party was winding down. Guests began to depart, calling out goodbyes and well wishes. Soon, only the immediate family remained, sitting together in the warm glow of the hearth. "I am going to miss this," Olive said softly, looking around at her family. "I know I will be back, but it will not be the same." "No," Orla agreed. "But that is the nature of growing up. You must go out into the world and make your own way. We will be here when you need us, but your life is your own to live." "I am scared," Olive admitted. "Good," Vincent said. "Fear means you understand the stakes. But do not let it stop you. Be brave like your mother. And be kind like your father," Orla added. Olive smiled, that perfect smile that combined her mother's tusks with her father's warmth. "I will try." As the night grew late, the family retired to their beds. Vincent and Orla lay together in their room, holding each other in the darkness. "Do you ever regret it?" Orla asked quietly. "Taking me as your wife, the difficulties it brought?" "Never," Vincent said without hesitation. "Marrying you was the best decision I ever made. You gave me a reason to live when I thought I had none. You filled this empty house with love and laughter. You gave me children I adore and a purpose beyond mere survival. How could I ever regret that?" "I do not regret it either," Orla said. "Even the hard parts, They made us who we are." "We are quite the pair," Vincent said, echoing his words from so many years ago. "Yes," Orla agreed, snuggling closer. "We are." They fell asleep in each other's arms just as they had for decades, two souls who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. The next morning they saw Olive off on her journey. She hugged each of them tight, promising to write and visit whenever she could. As her wagon disappeared down the road, Orla felt Vincent's arm around her shoulders. "She will be fine," he said. "I know, but I will miss her." "So will I." "But this is what we raised her for, to go out into the world and make a difference." They walked back to the house, where Oak and Ivy were waiting. Life would continue, full of its daily rhythms and challenges, but Orla and Vincent would face it as they always had, together. As the years continued to pass, their love only deepened. They grew old together, their bodies slowing but their affection never wavering. Vincent's hair went gray, then white. Orla's green skin wrinkled and creased. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the people they had fallen in love with all those years ago. Their children thrived, each making their own mark on the world. Olive became a successful trader and diplomat, her unique heritage giving her credibility with both humans and orcs. Oak took over the farm, expanding it and modernizing it while maintaining the principles his parents had taught him. Ivy became a healer, combining human and orc medical knowledge to develop new treatments. And through it all, Vincent and Orla remained the steady center, the example that love could transcend any barrier. On their 40th anniversary, their children threw them a celebration. The house was filled with people, human and orc alike, all of whom had been touched by Vincent and Orla's example. There were former apprentices from Orla's smithy, families who had followed their lead in cross-cultural marriages, and even a few former skeptics who had been won over by their obvious devotion. As Orla looked around at the gathered crowd, she marveled at how far they had come. From a forced marriage between two strangers to this, a legacy of love and acceptance that had changed their community, Vincent stood and raised his glass. 40 years ago, I was a lonely, broken man. The war had damaged me, and I thought I would never find peace. Then Orla arrived, and everything changed. She brought light into my darkness, strength to my weakness, and love to my empty life. She gave me children, built a business, and became my best friend and partner in all things. She taught me that love is not about perfection but about acceptance, not about easy roads but about walking difficult ones together. Orla, my love, my heart, my everything, thank you for 40 years of joy. Here is to 40 more. The crowd cheered, and Orla stood to respond, taking Vincent's hand. I came here as a frightened girl, convinced I was being sent to a nightmare. Instead, I found a dream. Vincent saw me, truly saw me when no one else did. He defended me, supported me, loved me. He built me a forge and helped me build a life. He gave me children I adore and a purpose beyond myself. He showed me that home is not a place but a person, and he has been my home for 40 years. I love you, Vincent Ashford, more with each passing day. They kissed, and the room erupted in applause. As the party continued around them, Vincent and Orla slipped away to the porch, seeking a moment of quiet. "Can you believe it has been 40 years?" Vincent asked, pulling Orla close. "Sometimes it feels like 40 days and sometimes like a lifetime, but every moment has been worth it. Even the hard parts, especially the hard parts, they taught us who we really are." They stood together, watching the sun set over the land they had worked together for so many years. The fields were green and productive. The smithy glowed with the light of the forge where Ivy's husband was demonstrating a technique to some young apprentices. The house behind them was full of laughter and love. "We did good," Vincent said softly. "We did very good," Orla agreed. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they remained there, holding each other, reflecting on a life well lived and a love that had overcome every obstacle. They had been two people thrown together by circumstance, but they had chosen each other every day since. That choice, renewed daily through 4 decades, had built something unbreakable. Orla thought about that first morning, when Vincent had looked at her tusks and seen beauty instead of monstrosity. That single act of kindness had changed everything, had given her the courage to hope, to love, to build. She had been so convinced she was unworthy, so certain her appearance made her less than. But Vincent had shown her the truth. That worth comes from within, that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and that love can transform everything. "What are you thinking?" Vincent asked, the same question he had asked 1,000 times over their years together. "About your smile," Orla said, turning to look at him. "About how you saw mine when no one else could." Vincent touched her face gently, his fingers tracing the curve of her tusks. "I still see it, every day, the finest smile in the world." Orla leaned into his touch, feeling the love that had sustained them through 4 decades, that would sustain them through whatever years remained. They had started as strangers, become partners, and ended as soulmates. Their journey had been unlikely, often difficult, but always worth it. Inside, someone called for them to come back to the party. Vincent and Orla exchanged a look and smiled. "Ready?" he asked. "Always," she replied. Hand in hand, they walked back into the house, back to their family and friends, back to the life they had built together. The party continued late into the night, filled with stories and laughter, with memories shared and new ones made. And when the last guest had departed and the house was quiet once more, Vincent and Orla retired to their bed, holding each other close as they had for 40 years, as they would for as many years as they were blessed to have. "I love you," Vincent whispered in the darkness. "I love you too," Orla replied. And in that simple exchange, repeated countless times over countless nights, was everything that mattered. They had found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances, had built a life against all odds, had proved that love could indeed conquer all. The orc bride who had been mocked for her tusks had found a man who saw only beauty when he looked at her. And together, they had created something extraordinary. A love story for the ages, a family that bridged 2 worlds, and a legacy that would endure long after they were gone. As sleep claimed them, wrapped in each other's arms, their last thoughts were of gratitude, for the chance meeting that had changed everything, for the courage to love across boundaries, for the children who carried their legacy forward, for every moment, good and bad, that had brought them to this point. They had been given an arranged marriage and had transformed it into a true partnership, a deep friendship, and an abiding love. They had faced prejudice and overcome it. They had been told their love was wrong and had proved it was right. And most importantly, they had shown the world that when one person looks at another and sees not their differences but their worth, when one person says, "I see you and you are beautiful," miracles can happen. Walls can fall. Hearts can heal. And love, true love, can flourish even in the most unlikely soil. That was their legacy. Not the farm or the smithy or even their children, wonderful though they were. Their true legacy was the proof that love transcends all boundaries, that kindness matters more than appearance, and that every person deserves to be seen and valued for who they truly are. Vincent had looked at Orla on that first day and had said, without words but with his actions, "You are worthy, you are valued, you are beautiful." And those simple affirmations, given freely and sincerely, had changed both of their lives forever. As the moon rose high over the farm, casting silver light across the fields and buildings, peace settled over the land. In their room, Vincent and Orla slept soundly, hearts beating in sync, a perfect ending to another perfect day in their extraordinary life together. They had been the orc bride and the war veteran, two damaged souls seeking solace. They had become partners, friends, lovers, and finally soulmates. Their story was one of transformation, of healing, of love's power to overcome any obstacle. And though they did not know how many years remained to them, they knew this. However long or short their time together, it would be enough. Because they had each other, they had love, and they had built something that would endure long after they were gone. In the end, that was all anyone could ask for. To love and be loved, to matter to someone, to leave the world a little better than you found it. Vincent and Orla had done all of that and more. Their story, which had begun with fear and uncertainty, had become a testament to love's enduring power. And it would continue through their children and grandchildren, through the community they had helped build, through every person whose life they had touched. The orc bride had found her place. The war veteran had found his peace. And together, they had found their happily ever after, not because their life was perfect, but because they had chosen each other every single day for 40 years and counting. That was the true magic of their story. Not grand gestures or dramatic rescues, but the quiet, steady choice to love someone fully, to see them clearly, and to stand by them always. It was a lesson the world desperately needed, and they had lived it beautifully. As dawn broke on a new day, Vincent and Orla woke together as they always did, greeting each other with smiles and soft words of affection. Another day began, another opportunity to love and be loved, to work and create, to simply be together. And that, in the end, was the greatest gift of all.